All right, you should have all received one of these books. Steve Barber. Okay, please acknowledge the presence today of Steve Barber, who started this whole volunteer business for me. Okay, it was, here you go. Thank you, Steve. Okay. I've been at many lectures over the many years I've been in practice, invitations, churches, political fundraisers, hotels. Most of these PowerPoints don't work. You know, they crash and people get frustrated. I've seen politicians driven to tears when they're heralded. So I printed everything up in case we have a problem. I know I will not be able to. The whole lecture's right here. I could stop right now. We're all done. You can go home, okay? You know, my father, this would have been his 91st birthday if he was living. And I want to dedicate this lecture to him on a serious note. And if he was here, and he heard that nice dissertation about the parking, he would have said 2 words to you all: leave early. All right, we all get frustrated by coming to work, coming to volunteer, coming to Beaumont, wherever we're going. We always cut it so close. That was a pet peeve of my dad's. He would leave early. Okay, you're going to the airport. Okay, you got 2 hours. Give yourself 3 hours. What's the big deal? Park, take it easy, have some coffee. All right, if you get here to Beaumont early, park far. The walk is good for you. We don't need more parking. We need to get here just a little bit earlier. Okay, so leave early. There's always traffic. And expect the unexpected, like my dad used to always tell me. All right, so we'll give it a shot here. First of all, I wanted to thank the volunteers, this is personal, for supporting the Bloomfield Players last winter. My daughter was cast in the play as Gracie Shin in The Music Man, and if this works. This is Louisa right here. Okay. And the volunteers made that a great success, and the fundraiser for them, community theater, we had people from New York, Broadway, come and watch the play, and they loved it. All right? So thanks to the volunteer for your support. I'll let you know when the next play is, okay? I think I had 200 tickets, or was it 100 tickets? Yeah, 100 tickets. Okay, we had another 100th birthday in the office. Again, not exactly on the educational thing, but what do you care? You got the whole lecture right here, right? So I can talk about whatever I want here. All right. We had 100, but now Mrs. Dragonetti, the odd thing is that she was my age, the age I am today, which I will not tell you, when she started in my practice. Think of that, to practice that many years. To have a patient at my age turn 100, all right? It was through the fine care, hospitalized many times here at Beaumont, and excellent care she received. She loves this place. And these 100th birthdays would not be possible. Everybody's going to need Beaumont at some point or another. And I do preventive health. And this hospital is absolutely amazing. I could tell you much more, many, many stories of people that should not be alive today, but they are thanks to this hospital, this institution. And a lot of it has to do with the volunteers as well, so thank you. So that's, I wanted to just show you a couple things here. When somebody turns 100, the coolest thing is you go back 100 years. We always do this at the office. We go back, what was going on in the news when they were born? So I looked here, and we had Wimbledon was canceled in 1915 because the Kaiser was dropping bombs on sporting events.
The 31st of May, 1915. It was 9 months into World War I, and the Germans were rewriting the rules of conflict. They had launched a new kind of terror campaign. For the first time in history, innocent civilians were being bombed in their own homes. The carnage had been delivered by a new weapon, straight from the pages of science fiction. An enormous airship called a Zeppelin. For 2 long years, these gas-filled monsters poured down death with impunity.
One of the bombs hit a school of young children. There's a memorial in England for those children to this day. That was what was happening. Also, my grandfather came to Detroit in 1915. And my grandfather is right there. All right? He's got the straw hat, the bow tie. My grandfather worked in Danbury, Connecticut. He came here in 1912, actually, and then there were no cars, really. The big thing was hats in America. America's biggest export was hats, and the biggest textile mill for making hats was in Danbury, and that's where the Lebanese were coming, to Danbury, Connecticut. It was only when Ford announced the $5 a day. My grandfather liked to dress well, so he needed that $5 for new clothes. Okay. All right. At any rate, that was happening, and that was actually shot on the lawn. We have still photos of my grandfather here too, to validate that. This was shot on the lawn as Woodrow Wilson was addressing them, because he was helping build the world's first horseless ambulance. Think of that. Up until 1915, ambulances were drawn by horses. Ford invents the horseless ambulance for World War I. My grandfather's building them there in Highland Park, Michigan. And that's why I'm here today, by the way, so thank you. And there goes my grandfather. He's still trying to get in the picture here, see him? Here he is driving. Okay. All right, so he never drove after that. That was it. Now, on a very serious tone, we want to switch gears here. Again, I haven't really done PowerPoints in large audiences before. Usually I just speak. But this is a wonderful tool, and we might as well try to use it. And Ken Davis, who was kind enough to meet with me this morning and set this thing up, said that it looked pretty good for an old doc setting up a PowerPoint. Anyway, are you ready to be a hero? And I'm speaking directly to the volunteers here, the ones who are here, the ones who could not be with us today, and the ones who have passed on, who occupied these seats over the last 35 years that I've spoken in this auditorium. When I pay tribute to them, this article is entitled, Are You Ready to Be a Hero? Now, when I got the idea for this article, and again, you can see I'm never going to get through this book, but I got the idea when I saw a USA Today article that said that 20% of Americans, when they reached the end of life, had been asked, did you ever have to do something heroic? Did you ever have to be a hero on some kind of thing? Maybe save a child drowning, maybe quick thinking, you got your mother out of the house with carbon monoxide, maybe there was a car crash, something of that nature. And 20% of the people responded yes. And then I thought to myself, well, what's the objective of a physical examination? To listen to the heart to make sure the patient's not sick? Or should it be, is this patient capable of doing something heroic? Think of that. Raise your hand if you've had to do something heroic in your life. Okay, hands are going up. I think if you think about it, volunteerism is heroic. So all the hands up, please. Thank you very much. All right, so volunteerism is heroic on many, many levels. What you do for the service to the hospital, the community, others who know you, that know that you volunteer. You're an ambassador. Also, volunteers know a lot. They know what the departments, they know what kind of specialists they are, they know what kind of services we offer here at Beaumont. You're all ambassadors of the hospital. You know, where would we be without the volunteers? A fundamental aspect of the hospital. Anyway, when we think about heroism in general, I like to think that when I do a physical on a patient, that I am preparing that patient, now look if they're 90 years old, of doing something heroic if they had to. Quick action, quick thinking, whatever it takes. So one of our aspects, though, as volunteers, and I hope we all think of ourselves here as heroes, is that we think quick and we're ready at a moment's notice to operate in a manner not dissimilar from Jean Valjean from Les Miserables, or however you pronounce that. Les Miserables, I've had the French tell me, even the French disagree. Even the French disagree on how to pronounce it. At any rate, the goal, if you've read the book, and I highly recommend that you read the book, not just look at the play. I was told by an English teacher. My English teacher is my patient, unfortunately, or fortunately. And she told me, Carl, don't see the play until you've read the book. She didn't tell me it was 2,000 pages. Les Misses. 300 pages are dedicated to the sewer system of Paris, all right, in the 19th century. At any rate, the book was an amazing thing, and it was a life-changing thing for me. When you're an old person like I am, for something to change your life, it has to be something pretty profound. Reading Les Mis changed my life. It helped me understand about my daughters. We all remember Fantine and Cosette, who've seen the play, watched the movie, read the book. Cosette, my kids were about that age when I read the book. And suddenly Hugo was telling me why my daughters are doing what they're doing, how they need to pull away, because if I were to die, it would be just devastating for them. You see, Hugo talks to the reader. which is the most amazing thing about that book. He stops the action and he says, now a word to the reader. All these centuries later, have you ever wondered why Cosette had to pull away from Jean Valjean, for example? Okay, what's the point of this article? The point of the article is that Hugo ultimately says that the life of Jean Valjean, he was never happy. He never attained happiness. Our Declaration of Independence says we have the right to pursue happiness. Is that right? Yes. That's okay, right to pursue happiness. But Jean Valjean never achieved it. Not at the beginning, not in the middle, not at the end. The reader is left devastated in that final scene in the unmarked grave of Jean Valjean. Unmarked, no one even knows to visit the grave of this man. And by the way, in case you didn't know it, this character was based on an actual true hero, a real person this book was written about. So what is the purpose of existence, says Hugo. The purpose of existence is, as you already know here, illumination and service. So you can't serve anybody here if you don't know anything. So education becomes vital. So when kids say, I'm not going to college because there's no money at the end of it, the point of education is not money. The point is service. You can't be of service without education. That's why we go to college. That's why we learn from the cradle to the grave. How many things have you said to your patients here, your volunteers? Here, it's your church, in your community. The kind word. You knew just what to say to calm down a friend, a neighbor, a loved one. You knew because you have knowledge, because you've experienced and you've read. You know things. You know how to help people. Jean Valjean, and I'm telling you, please read the book. That's your homework. I did homework. You're doing homework, okay? I want you to get that book and I want you to read it. It's available on tape, unabridged. It's about 70 hours. But well worth it. Frederick Davison, the book is read by Frederick Davison, who is a master of English and French language, and it's absolutely beautiful. And maybe for a Christmas present, I'll donate a few copies on tape or on audio to the volunteer office. Nancy, don't forget. All right. Okay, so illumination and service. So whatever happens in your life, happy, unhappy, rich, poor, old, young, it never matters. It's always about illumination and service. Learn something today and help somebody today. That's why God put you in this world, to learn and to help. Okay, both. He learns it and we learn it by reading the book. If you've read the book or if you've seen the movie or seen the play, and it's marvelous, I loved the movie. But if you missed that point, then you missed the whole point of the book. Illumination and service. Say it out loud for me. Illumination and service. That's what, so when your grandchildren, when your children ask you, what's the point of life? I don't have any money, I don't have this, I don't have that, this boy doesn't like me. It's not about being happy. There'll be moments of happiness. You'll have these moments in life. But the purpose of existence is illumination and service. Hugo had it absolutely right. All right? Now, let's go to the, oh, by the way.
Hope was high and life worth living.
You guys know Judy Kuhn? She's from 30 years ago on Broadway.
I dreamed that love would never die. I dreamed that God would be forgiving.
Now, the point of that, actually, is that you're going to find people whose dreams are crushed. Their hopes are gone. This is what happens to Fantine, of course, in the book. And it's up to you to bolster their spirits. You may have to do that sometime today. Again, illumination and service. Look for people to help. That's what volunteers do. I'm preaching to the choir. I know that, okay? All right, but that's what we want to encourage our younger folks, the ones Seinfeld calls eye replacements, right? Ominously, right? All right. Okay, number one rule in the practice. What's the number one rule in my practice? Don't fall down. Patty and Tracy, you back there? Tracy's back there and Patty. They work in my office. Number one rule, don't fall down. Okay. All right, so we don't want to laugh too much at their misfortune, but this was... okay. At any rate, we have some rules here in the book. All right? All right. All right. And so we're back to the beginning there. So, okay, let's stop. We're killing those people. All right. Now, over the years, this microphone doesn't let me walk, and I'm a nervous lecturer. So I have to... But anyway... we'll talk about job stress in a minute, but I wanted to let you know, over the past 30, Kay, how long ago Winokur and I were Chief? Kay Beauregard, Kay Winokur is, she's married to Steve Winokur, my co-chief resident in 1982. Okay, and it's been a number of years. But back when Steve and I were co-chiefs, at any rate, back when Steve and I were chiefs, a woman took estrogen, didn't they, for osteoporosis prevention? All right, and it was right here on this lectern that I announced in 1982 that I was asking my female patients to stop estrogen. Okay, and administration of Beaumont said, if you're going to do that, you've got to cover this Beaumont. So Ken Davis will tell you in the back that I had to cover the Beaumont sign. If you're going to tell a woman not to take estrogen, because some of our GYN people are upset at you for doing that. But the thing is, there was something new coming out then called the internet. Okay, and it was very slow. But I was very interested in it because you could get articles from all over the world and see what other doctors were experiencing, same thing. So bottom line is, that was then. So we went through various stages of what are we going to do to stop these hip fractures in women and these vertebral fractures. So we went from estrogen, then we went on to something called Fosamax. Who took Fosamax? Raise your hand. I see a number of hands there. That was really bad science. Fosamax was bad science, but it was what we thought was good at the time. And I wrote for it. I wrote for Fosamax. I said, well, anything's better than estrogen. We don't want uterine cancer and breast cancer. And so anyway, then we went from Fosamax to some injectables. There is Reclast, now there's Prolia. And basically the way these drugs work is to reduce the uptake of bad bone. Okay, that's how they work. They reduce the uptake of bad bone, because bone is always remodeling. We've gone through other different phases, and then we went through in our office a phase of helping people with their balance. Okay, estrogen doesn't work. It's not very safe. Fosamax is not very safe. We're getting more fractures, dental problems. Okay, we'll work on balance. Maybe if we could teach the woman not to fall at all, our problem is solved. All right? And then the men started living longer. Raise your hand if you're a man. Okay? All right, very good. You're living longer, and you're getting osteoporosis like the woman, too. We're all going to get it. So, in other words, falling is bad at all ages. It's always a bad thing. And these fractures, although we are here, we welcome them, we are here to serve them at Beaumont Hospital. We have, I think, if we're not the best orthopedic in Michigan, we've got to be very close to that. We have an amazing orthopedics here. Everybody, 100% success rate on these hip replacements. But they're very busy, and they would rather you didn't break your hip, actually. Okay? And the best way we decided after all these different phases in practice, I realized was I was at a movie show one day, and I was walking behind a bunch of really old people because it was a really old people movie. I don't know if it was the Bridges of Madison County or one of those movies. But I was at that time too young for this film, and I was all these older folks, which is my livelihood, so I was patient, and I waited for these older folks to leave. It's sort of like being at Walmart in Venice, Florida. All right? So I'm walking, and we're trying to get out of this show. All right? Finally, I realized that, look at all these old people, and nobody's falling, and it's totally dark. And I looked and I saw those little lights that they put. These little lights, I'm sure we have them here, Ken, right? We have those lights here. I don't know if Beaumont has it. But those little LED lights. So I thought, maybe it was always about seeing the floor. Maybe no matter what your balance is like, maybe no matter what your age is, if you can see the floor, you don't fall. And actually, I realized this was correct. It was always correct. It was never about woman not falling, or woman taking hormones, or woman taking bone density medication. It was always about light, good light. So I called China, and I ordered 1,000, and asked Ken Davis in the back there if he wasn't plugging my cables in today by the light of Carl Vision. All right, Ken's waving back there. He's waving. And I have, because you all can't, just like Oprah, except way less money. I have a Carl Vision light for all the volunteers. Please, if you'd pass them out here, bring them up. All right. So the idea is that you find yourself on a darkened stairway. You're coming home at night. Nancy's here long hours. Kay's here long hours. They get home. It's sun's down at 5 now, right? Yeah. All right. So you get home and the driveway's dark. The door is dark. Your porch light's off because it was light. And you go and there's a paint can right there on your husband put it right there on the thing. He was going to take it to the road, but he forgot today wasn't garbage day. All right? So then, by the light of Carl vision, you shine this thing down, you squeeze it, or there's a switch on it to leave it on. The battery lasts forever. The technology is amazing. And this will prevent all falls, okay? So if you're gonna replace a hip, replace it because you have arthritis, not because you fell and broke it, all right? So that was the falling thing. We'll go watch a couple more of those people falling there. So this is not gonna happen. Don't do stuff like this, of course. All right, and then put on your Carl Vision. There's a little stretch string. You don't wanna mess your hair. I don't like to mess my hair either, so. All right, there we go. No more falling. Is your job stress killing you? One of my employees had been gone from work for 20 years, and then the computers were on the scene then. So here she is. I took a video of her. All right. So. Yeah, she's still with us, actually. So anyway, an article came out just last month. And you know, I've been writing this lecture. I've been writing it for a couple of months since Nancy kindly invited me to speak. And you always wonder when you're giving lectures like this, you know, I only have so many minutes to
the little dots on that we're passing out.
oh, this is Carl Vision.
No, they don't say.
There's okay. Thank you, Patty. That was my office manager, Patty. Thank you. There's also little glow-in-the-dark reflective dots for your first and last stair, so that when the house is dark, it'll glow phosphorescent dots. So there's lots of things you can do to fall-proof, and that's our big push right now in the office, because the patients are getting up in age, except Nancy Carlisi, of course. She's getting younger every year. Yeah. And the point I want to make is we are putting a lot of emphasis on fall prevention. We really want these people to make that 100th birthday because we give a heck of a party for the 100th birthday. All right. Okay, so job stress killing you. Unbelievably, indications are that nicotine, smoking all your life, will shorten life by an average of 2.2 years. Here, job stress seems to be a risk factor worse than smoking, according to that. So I'm not saying you can take up smoking and quit your job. What I am saying, though, is that if you really dislike your job, if it's that big of a problem for you, don't think that it's not having an impact on your health. Look for different work, all right? Don't get fired. We'll talk about that in a minute. You're going to have to give me a clue on the time, Nancy. Okay. Don't get fired, but just look for something that is, even if it's a little bit less money, something that you enjoy doing, okay? Clearly, I love what I'm doing. Nancy and Kay love what they're doing. Barber loves what he's doing over there. Okay, doing good work for the hospital. Okay, we lost, of course, since the last time I lectured to the volunteers, we lost Robin Williams. I was talking to Ken about this morning. What made Robin Williams so amazing was not simply his comedic genius or his ability to improvise or to ad lib, but he had an amazing voice. You know, he had this amazing vocal range. So, real quick, just to tribute to Robin Williams. That's him singing. So we all know the story of Robin Williams, very briefly. We have patients, I'm seeing a lot of gray hair like my own out in the audience today. So perhaps one or two of you have noticed maybe a little more shuffling. Maybe you haven't noticed it, but a loved one has noticed that when you're walking, you're not picking the feet up like you used to, okay? Now, people say that when Parkinson's is all about shaking. I have not found that to be the case at all. I find that the first sign of Parkinson's in my elderly patients, I'd say 50 or 60 and up, is they start having less clearance on the ground, right? You know, when you're young, you walk like this, don't you? Right? Right? And the older you get, the closer those feet get to the floor, don't they? And pretty soon they start making a sound, don't they? Right? That's when you know this person is very prone to a fall. And Parkinson's patients always fall forward, unlike people with balance problems, because their foot catches and down they go forward, all right? So the point is we have at Beaumont Hospital amazing neurologists, amazing treatments, amazing physical therapy available. And I want you to know, if you ever are diagnosed with this, do not be troubled by it. Robin Williams killed himself when he was diagnosed with Parkinson's. He got the diagnosis and he killed himself. There was no reason for this. If he had just called a doctor, a neurologist, they would have given him hope. Parkinson's is easy to treat. And the main thing is you have to learn how to pick up those feet, because that's the big problem with Parkinson's patients. They're going to fall. So if you have Parkinson's, if you know someone with Parkinson's, please, therapy, dance, training, whatever it is, but don't be feeling bad. Hopefully, we all live to get really old and get some Parkinson's. Because I've seen a lot of the tendencies in our 90 and 100-year-olds. I almost wonder sometimes if it's not a natural thing, kind of like the gray hair of the nervous system. You see what I'm saying? Parkinson's is not to be feared. You want to live long enough to maybe get it. That's the point of it, all right? I told you about our 100th birthday party, right? Okay, all right. All right, another article on chocolate came out just within the last year or so. We've seen all we could see about this. We thought epicatechins or another of the chemicals. So those of you who think that red wine's the only way to get these nice flavonols and things like this, you can get them from chocolate, the dark chocolate, of course, not milk chocolate. Milk chocolate has nothing beneficial, all right? I mean, it tastes good, but other than that, don't worry. So let's move along because we'll never finish. So again, you're Carl Karoub and you're writing a lecture and you got 10 minutes left. How do you do this? You know, I could tell you guys so much. There's so many things you all need to know. Most of us in the book. Real quick on marriage and divorce. Get involved with your kids and grandkids. Divorce is always bad, all right? I don't think if a husband's abusing his wife or if a wife is abusing her husband physically. I mean, there's exceptions, but in most cases I've seen only bad from it. I have a YouTube...
I can only give you love that
Let me just 1 second, please, if you would.
lasts forever.
See that article there? I have had patients in my practice now for 33 years, and I'm telling you, some of them were very bad marriages, and they became very good marriages. But you have to hang in there. You're going to need each other. Okay, it really is you two against the world. You need to stay together. These marriages have to be held together. Obviously, there are exceptions to this, but most of the divorces I've seen in my practice, maybe 95%, could have been prevented. I've helped stop a few of them. Usually if there's other people involved, if it's that kind of relationship. Thank you. Okay, good, thank you, got it. I only got 8 minutes, 7 minutes, 6 minutes. Thank you. All right. Most couples say that the marriages do improve with age.
The promise to be
There's what I can do is, if Nancy, I can drop off DVDs of all the videos on one DVD. So every DVD I was going to show, I have shown, is here. All right, so lots of literature on this, and also, by the way, the whole thing of the divorce is better for the children, that's been proven completely wrong. 100% wrong. And even the sociologists and psychologists say that, completely wrong, all right? And that's just me talking, that's not Beaumont, that's me. Don't start calling Beaumont and telling Beaumont, what's the matter with your crazy doctor there? All right. I think I may have time for one or two more articles. The one article is, I think I talked to Nancy about this too, is the increased likelihood of a person dying on their birthday, all right? So I tell my patients, I don't know when you'll die. They say, well, how long do you think I'll live? I go, I don't know, but I know what day you might die on, and that's your birthday, all right? It's a weird thing, but you can use it to your advantage. The way you do that is every time your birthday's approaching, let's say your birthday is May 23 like mine. When May 1st comes, I start thinking, I better clean my closet. I better straighten my shelves. I better get my stuff together. You know, and then wait. Then when the birthday's over, I just start going to do what I like to do. My 3 favorite things: enjoying life, volunteering, and not falling down. All right? So that's an article there. That's in your book. You can read that, please, and think about that. All right, now I think I'll conclude with this article. We had a tragic loss of a patient, but we'll talk about that maybe some other time. I have 4 daughters, as many of you know, and we don't talk about death in our house. You start saying anything like that, listen to Chloe, because Daddy's not going to be around for. All right. So our fish died. The family fish. Everybody took turns feeding this fish. We didn't know how to break it to the kids. So Connie and I made a video.
You've never really faced death before.
Not like this. I haven't faced death. I've cheated death. I've tricked myself out of death and patted myself on the back for my ingenuity. I know nothing. But of all the souls that I have encountered in my travels, his was the most human.
The good of the many outweigh the good of the fish. Mr. Scott, beam us up.
Now you're going to get to see the Detroit sewer system at work. And that's how we told the kids about Chad. R.I.P. Chad. All right, thank you for that. Now, one of our patients is, thank you for humoring me on that. One of our patients is a world-famous psychologist who's written a book on loss. And if you're going to live to be 100, and who wants to live to be 100 here? Raise your hands. They should all go up. I told you about the party, right? All right, way up, way up. All right, if you want to live to be 100, you're going to outlive a lot of people. You're going to attend a lot of funerals. You may even bury children living 100. I don't think I have a 100-year-old patient who hasn't had a child that died. All right. I mean, it's one of those things you have to steel yourself against that. If you're going to be constantly a lifelong illumination and service, you're going to see a lot of sad things if you live a long time. But you're going to help a lot of people. I always tell the volunteers, what I admire most about you all is you'll probably die helping someone. Think about that. The angel of death taking a second or two to let you finish what you're doing. All right, helping someone. Anyway, this book, Voices Left Behind, I've got a couple of 100 copies at the office. If any should ever feel that they're having trouble coping with loss, I will donate a copy to, I'll give copies to Nancy to pass out. It's a beautiful, beautiful, it's the best book I've ever read on grieving and loss. And obviously people do come to me for that. It's not all about blood pressure and cholesterol all the time. Some people come in just because they're grieving and having trouble coping. If I might just go to the end, Ken knows about this as a control end. I don't know if I have so many more. No, I'm going to finish with this one. We talked a little bit about the flu prevention, flu vaccines, and so I wanted to show you some videos that I made because we are forgetting sometimes that the main issue of flu prevention and infectious disease spread is hygiene, washing hands, not Purell, but washing hands, not vaccine, washing hands. Patty and Tracy, you have an article to pass? Have you passed that article out? Okay. There was an article that just came out over the weekend. I had already written the book. It was done. And it came out, 2 articles came out. Number 1, only bleach will kill C. diff. All right? So, excuse me, you can do all you want with Purell and alcohol, but only bleach will kill it. So we got to start cleaning surfaces with bleach. The second thing is we've got to wash our hands. Okay, you all work in a hospital. You don't want to get C. diff and take it from here. Here's a good video here, and maybe we'll finish with this.
Jerry, tonight is for a real treat. I'm personally going to pay the dinner for you and Audrey.
Look like you've seen a ghost.
That's one of my favorites. I'll give you one more if you have one. I have 1 more minute. Okay, 1 minute.
What are you doing? What? Did you just double dip that chip? Excuse me? You double dipped the chip. Double dipped? What are you talking about? You dipped the chip, you took a bite, and you dipped again.
So?
That's like putting your whole mouth right in the dip.
I want to thank you for inviting me today. Please, all the other articles I would love to have reviewed, they're all in the book, and I'll have some DVDs for you. Thank you.